Hey everyone, welcome to Watch Complications. I'm Brian. In the description below you will find links to my website, Watch Complications, my Instagram, Watchy Pro app for iOS for managing your watch collection, and timeline for the video in case you want to jump around. If you're new to the channel, you like what you see, consider hitting that subscribe button, the bell if you want updates, and stick around to see what's going on here at Watch Complications. It's been about a month since I received my Christopher Ward C1 Bel Canto, which has given me a lot of time to wear it, get a feel for it, really sort out what are the pros and the cons of the watch so I can give you that information from my perspective anyway. If you want some more context and background for chiming watches, repeaters, sonneries, and history, cost, comparisons of a few other modern models of sonnerie au passage watches, passing chime watches, then go watch that first video. Or if you want to get right into the specific nitty-gritty details of the Bel Canto, then here we go. Now this watch has been heavily covered across different watch channels and blogs and news sites and got a lot of PR. It was released on November 1st. I got a preview to it prior to that, and when I first saw it, I said to myself, this is going to sell out in a day. No question. When you have this combination of complication, design, and price point with the materials and whatnot, I had no question in my mind. It's an LE of 300 in this blue color. And it sold out within 8 hours or a little less. The company might have a sense that this is probably going to be a successful product, but you still have the sort of mild optimism and you want to wait to see what happens. Well, because of that instant success, a few days later they roll out another color in an LE of 300 in a green. It's a beautiful shade of green, and it sold out in less than 2 hours because the hype and people had been informed or gotten wind of this particular new watch from Christopher Ward, and it sold out like that. They do have this mailing list you can sign up for so that if you're interested in future variations of the watch, then you can be informed and stay in the loop on that. There's no way that Christopher Ward or any company would put the time, energy, R&D, money into something like this and then not try to take full advantage of it. There's going to be variations or iterations or deviations from this particular endeavor. That just makes perfect business sense, horological sense. I was lucky enough to get in a little early. This is serial number 2. That's right, numero dos. And I showed it in a short a couple weeks ago, let you hear the ding, and it's just makes the mouth water. This is the watch of 22, no doubt. And there might be more complicated things from a horology complication standpoint, wild designs, over the top sort of things. But this is a watch that when you bring together the horology, the complication that's in this, the sonnerie au passage, passing chime, when you tie in the design characteristics, the materials involved, the process involved, and the price, there is no question this is the watch of 22. Some people would argue the moon swatch because of the hype around it, the popularity, number of units sold, but that's got its own pros and cons like anything else. But hands down, I don't think there's any competition, to be honest. This is the watch of 22. If you really take into consideration design, complication, and cost. And the opportunity for, let's say, the more average watch enthusiast or collector to have a chiming watch with this look and feel about it, you can't find anywhere else, period. So if you can, yeah, sure, put it in the comments. And I'm looking forward to hearing all the comments about this below. Now, there have been some big channels out there that have reviewed this watch, including like TGV and Watchfinder, and that's all well and good, but I am going to get into the details of this. I put my own money into it. I have worn it for weeks. This isn't where I got it on for press reasons, looked at it for a day or two, or even that, and then gave some feedback on it. Some people watching this video is going to be your first exposure to me in this channel, and this is quite a different type of a watch. I am a Christopher Ward fan. I have quite a few of their watches. I have a variety of watches, both sort of high-end, mid-tier, low-end, you know, Casio to Vacheron. So I try to bring a really holistic perspective to anything I review, be it watch accessories, watch tools in my watchmaking endeavors. So this video or any of my other videos, what you're going to get from me is straight up honesty, no fluff. Everything has pros and cons. I'm going to tell you what they are. I'm not trying to sell you on it one way or another. So that's my approach, and hopefully you like it. Let's get this thing under the camera. As we get into the details of the Christopher Ward C1 Bel Canto, I am going to leave the lighting situation here as raw as possible. I have multiple lights set up around the room. You're going to see some reflection, but I want you to see this sort of as raw as possible, the way I'm sort of seeing it and looking at it. And I'm sure you'll see plenty of other pictures out there, videos that you've come across. That's just the way I'm going to approach it for the purposes of this video. The specs on this. We have 41 millimeter. I measured about 41.65. Height is about 13.5 millimeter. And lug to lug, a little bit less than 48, 47.75. So this is an extremely wearable watch given the complications. Lug width 22 millimeter. And weight on the bracelet is about 104 grams, super light as far as this size of a watch on a bracelet goes because it's all titanium. It's about 64 grams on the leather strap. I'll talk more about the straps here in a little bit. The bracelet is brushed, and for the most part the case as well, but we do have transitions here on the edge of the case and the lugs and the bezel that are polished, so you get nice transitions. You get that same sort of feel on the face of the watch, be that on the raised dial, the bridges, the hammer, the gong, so on and so forth. We have a solid case back. Now, I'm just going to say, I don't know if anyone else does this, you know, comment below. I'll keep the back sticker, if it's not like crumpled up or making noise, I'll leave it on like kind of generally, almost as long as possible. Like it doesn't bother me. It doesn't feel weird or any different. I still have my Rolex has the back on it as well. Like, I don't know. It's like if it's not bothering me, not making noise, why take it off? Because it has a little bit of protection. I still have that on after a month. See, it's deep stamped, has this wave pattern. See, I've got number 2 out of 300. Yeah, the deep stamping does look really good. And that solid case back helps that sound resonate a little bit more on the chime. Much prefer that than an exhibition case back in this sort of a watch. Crown is just a regular push-pull crown. Water resistance 3 ATM, 30 meters, about 100 feet. This is a fairly standard base movement, so we got a 28.8 VPH 4 Hertz, about 38 hours of power reserve. I'm getting a tad more on mine, a little bit closer to 40, 41 hours, and that's really good given the complication, the extra power needed to essentially charge the chiming action in the movement. General accuracy of this is plus minus 20 seconds a day, 29 joule movement. This is a sonnerie au passage, passing chime. It chimes 1 note on the hour. That note is a D, which is a very pleasing note, I would just say. This has the normal Christopher Ward 5-year warranty, 60/60 policy. The price tag on bracelet, $39.75, $35.95 on the strap. That's in US dollars. For the lume, there's not a ton on here, but it's, you know, SLN C1X1 blue. It's a great high-powered lume. Got just a little bit on there on the dial, on the markers and the hands. You need really strong quality lume or you're not really going to see it much. It's hard to talk about what the star of the show is on this watch because we have an expertly done titanium case and bracelet. We have an amazing dial face with the platine and the dial, the bridge work, the chiming, gong, and the hammer. Everything is just so well done and presented in this package. But the movement, I mean, that's what really boils down to, particularly for the watch nerd in me and perhaps some of you. The caliber in this, they're calling the FS01, which has a Sellita SW200 base. It's the basic automatic movement. And it's paired up with the JJ01 caliber technology, the jumping hour that's used on some previous models from years past. And they've used that jumping hour technology to chime on the hour. You have to build up a certain amount of tension on an extra spring as the hour passes so that it has enough oomph, if you want to call it that, So when it hits the hour, it can flip and rotate the disc. And really the key with the jumping hour complication that most companies still don't do and haven't figured out that well, but CW did with the JJ01 caliber, is you want that thing to jump on the hour, as close to it as possible, and in quick motion. Apply that exact same concept to a chime and dropping that hammer on the hour. You've got to build up that tension, use some of the power from the mainspring, and then boom, on the hour that hammer releases and strikes the gong. What I really like about this watch from a specs perspective is it's a masterclass in setting different types of materials next to each other. We have the titanium 5 case, we've got titanium 2 bracelet, we've got a rhodium dial, we've got a platine that's positively charged application, which means that's a limited number of colors you can do. It's extremely difficult to do right and do well. That's why they've relied on some other manufacturers to help them achieve this. It's just a full-on mix of materials and science, really, at the end of the day. You've got carbon steel for the spring. It's just so many material components and material science to get something like this right, and they have just sort of gone all across the board and done well on all of that. Not everybody talks about that kind of stuff because there is so much science and engineering behind something like this that leads to larger price tags for many other watches that have this sort of complication or have these sort of features. CW achieving that at this price point is why this is such an important move, an important watch for the industry. As for the strap on this, what makes it particularly wearable is we've got a 22 millimeter lug width, like I mentioned. So at the top it's 22 millimeter and it tapers down, which makes it extremely wearable. The link width where it hits the clasp is about 16.5 millimeter, and the clasp itself is about 18.75, so less than 20 millimeter. And I think that makes a huge difference. With the leather straps that come with this, it's an Italian leather, it's a 22 millimeter, but it only tapers to 20. Of course, the bracelet is quick release. See it there? So it's real fast to change out between the bracelet and the strap. You know, the bracelet gives it a little bit more of that daily wear, sporty look. If you want to go more dress, then you can put it on the strap. Regular viewers already know this about me, is that I don't just wear something like this on special occasions. Like I was doing electrical work outside of my house and I had this thing on in like 40-degree weather. Like I'm not afraid to wear the watches. This is titanium. It can take it, all right? But if you want to dress it up, put it on the strap. Got this tan color, which I particularly like. I think it really offsets with the blue. There's a blue strap as well. But I'm finding myself having it on the bracelet. Some people are like, that's just, it doesn't look right, it doesn't feel right. Well, in my opinion, it does. And I think this is what most people would have it on most of the time if they went with the bracelet option. When you buy a watch like this, always go bracelet. That way you have it. It's easier to get it when it's new than trying to find it later. And then you have the dressier option if you want to go that route. Let's just say, it's a chiming watch. Come on. Seriously, go watch my other video. I show a couple of the other repeaters I have, and I talk about sort of the general context, the cost. We have a chiming watch. It is, we'll call it the simplest of the chiming watch, maybe besides an alarm. But the fact is that this has brought haute horology to a much broader audience. People were thinking, right, this might be a repeater or something like that. Repeaters are good because they're on-demand time. But even more expensive than that is something like a Petite Sonnerie or a Grand Sonnerie. But those are annoying. And so most of the time the feature's off because you don't want something chiming 11 times at 11 o'clock or every 5 minutes. That just starts to get annoying. I'm just being honest. You like knowing maybe the town clock, you can hear it go off whenever you're walking around, let's say downtown, whatever. So you know it's 12 o'clock, a clock goes off, and there's 12 chimes. That's nice. I like a single chime on the hour even more. It is to the point, it's subtle, it lets you know that it's on the hour, and you can kind of generally guess what hour that probably is because you've been at least a conscious adult moving through the day. So I like the notion of just the Sonnerie au passage. It is the, I think, elegantly done chiming watch, and it's the right complication for a watch like this. The dimensions, key to something in this range. Again, I'm going to keep referencing it. Back to their video. Most watches that have a complication like this, or the 3D design that this has, are usually much bigger. The fact that this is 41 millimeter, that short lug to lug of less than 48 millimeter, around the 13 millimeter range height. I mean, come on. With the lightness of the titanium, you're not, and I guarantee you, I challenge anybody that watches this video and put in the comments below, find me a watch that's as wearable as this one, that has the same design characteristics and complications. You're not going to find it. But if you do, let me know. I think from a design perspective, one of the major pros is that they elevated the interesting components of the complication so that it's not fully skeletonized. If someone calls this a skeleton movement, then they don't know what they're talking about. This is not skeletonized. And many people would find a skeletonized movement. Let's take a Zenith, for example. CW has done skeletonized watches before. This is not skeletonized. This is very methodical choosing of what elements of a movement, complication, bridge work, dial to elevate or raise to the surface of above the platine. This is, the blue you see is not the dial. The dial is this rhodium circle you see right here around 12 o'clock. The platine is this plate that essentially sits between the main components of the movement, which is hidden, so it's not skeletonized, versus functional components that have been lifted above the surface, be that the spring or the gong or the dial and the bridges that lead up to that. We can see the motion work wheels arranged from center up toward 12. Not skeletonized. This is something else, different level. There are a lot of different ways in which these more sophisticated complications that require other crowns or pushers are put on watches. I really dislike generally dual crown watches. I don't mind the chronograph stuff, occasionally, but the crown at 2, and they've kept these things as slim as possible. But the way they did the pusher at 4, I think is one of the best pros of this watch. It is finely done. It is well brushed and polished in the right places. It's a slim profile. It functions great. I think just the layout of the case is so well done, and that extends to the pusher itself or the complication. You can notice the whole combination here looks like a bird. We've got the hammer as the tail. Of course, then we have sort of the eye here being one of the jewels. We've got the beak, this red indicator, the squiggle, meaning the sound, the chime, is currently enabled, it's on, or if you go to the flat line, it would be off. You can turn it on and off with the pusher here at 4, and when you turn it off, the tail is going to, the hammer, is going to pull up and disengage. See the indicator move down to being off, and then when you enable it, it will chime to let you know that it's been enabled, and then as the time goes around, it will slowly pull the hammer back, and then once it hits the hour on the hour, it will release. And when the chime goes off, if you're in a really loud room, you are probably not going to hear it, but if your hand happens to be close to your ear, say you're scratching your hair, or you're contemplating by rubbing your beard, or maybe you're picking your nose, you're gonna hear the chime, and even in a sort of a semi-loud space, but you can also feel the vibration. It does resonate very well. It's not just a dense ding, like just hitting the spoon against a full cup sort of thing. It will actually sound pleasant to the ear in most environments. One other thing I'll say about the complication on the watch is because it is based on tension, as it slowly around the 30-minute mark starts to pull the hammer back, is if the watch is starting to run low on power, you'll notice with a watch like this that the minute hand will always stop about just before the hour, so somewhere between usually 55 minutes and the 60, that hand will stop because there's not enough power left on the mainspring to get that hammer back just right there at the end to release it on the hour. So if the watch is starting to run low on power, it's got about a 38-hour power reserve, then you'll notice it almost always stopping between the 55 and the 60 minutes. One of the heavily discussed characteristics of this watch is the fact that there's no logo on the face of the watch. You have the Christopher Ward logo on the crown at 2. This is for the time setting. We've got the pusher here at 4 o'clock for turning the chime function on and off.
And that's it. I mean, you've got it on the bracelet, and you got Christopher Ward, of course, noted across the clasp here and on the buckle. But we've got that logo there on the crown. When you look at certain brands that are established, you want the branding sometimes just from a marketing perspective, but there are some times where you want to be like, let's let the design DNA speak for itself. That's an MB&F, or that's a Moser, right? Or that's so on and so forth. Based on conversations with them, I think the initial plan was to have the logo somewhere, but as they went through the design process, it became very clear. It's like, well, where are we going to put it in a way that it doesn't interfere with the overall aesthetic of the watch? And they just got to a point where it's like, it doesn't make sense really anywhere. So let's just let this be their finest hour, right? And you don't need to say on the dial face, this is a Christopher Ward. In the future, you're going to look at it and be like, that's a Bel Canto from Christopher Ward. Let's let that do the talking. That's bold, and I think it's significant. Another major pro with this watch is the depth, sort of the full-on 3D construction feel, the element quality, the carbon steel spring, the hand finishing on the bridges and the hammer. They, of course, relied on some really sophisticated watch manufacturers that they have relationships with. Arm & Strom help with the platine. That's the blue part you're seeing. Chronode, with the bridges, the hammer, and the gong. We've got special wheel construction with Vico Deco. It's just great seeing that collaboration across different sorts of brands with different skill sets to bring something like this to watch enthusiasts that, to be honest, probably never thought that they could afford or get their hands on a watch that has a look and feel and complication like this. We've talked about materials a little bit. Having the grade 5 titanium case, that is hard as nails. It's going to be hard to scratch and damage the case. It's going to hold up almost under any conditions. What's nice about it is it's just extra protection for this sophisticated complication in here. The bracelet has a little bit of a different sheen to it. Not a huge visual difference. You don't really notice it that much, but the bracelet is grade 2 titanium, so it's a little bit softer. But this is one of the best bracelets. I don't have any other titanium watches. I've tried on a few. They've never just quite felt right for me. There's some people that really like titanium watches. I can appreciate it to an extent, but this is the first one that I really liked. But they've put so much work and time and energy, R&D, into the development of their new bracelet. And they're making this in stainless steel as well. But the tolerances on this are insane. The only watch you're going to find with a better bracelet at this point, potentially, is Rolex. The tolerances on the screws across here are down to just a few microns. Like, it's basically nil. These things sit flush. They are a pleasure to take out and put back in, to adjust the links or half links as you want to resize it. I flip this around. You can see there's the arrow here on the inside. So you pull this tab, and then you've got multiple levels of micro adjust. Having that micro adjust is just a necessity for someone who's constantly moving back and forth between warmer and cooler environments. We already mentioned quick release. It's just one of the best bracelets I've had, with the taper, the micro adjust, resizing, the screws, the tolerances, the weight. It's just perfection. The leather strap, super comfortable. They've started using this leather on a couple of other watches. What's sort of the pros with this? They have it marked as titanium on the buckle. That's kind of nice because I change out a lot of buckles and straps and stuff. So at least you know that this is the titanium one if you were going to swap something out. They've started putting this on. This came with their Aquitaine series, but they've started putting it on multiples of their straps. Is this little keeper on the keeper, so that it kind of keeps it in place. Now, if you have a wrist of a certain size, you might have to snip that so that it can move further out, but that's just going to depend on your wrist size. But that's a nice little feature or two that I think are really nice to have on there. Of course, quick release, super comfortable. And as I start to move toward cons a little bit, I do like the leather strap. Gives it that dressy look. Now, this is 22 millimeters width at the lug, but it only tapers to 20. As I've worn it around, I've actually found that I like the bracelet better, is that whenever it is in the buckle, is that is a really snug fit, we'll call it. So I can foresee this getting a lot of wear on the sides of the leather strap. So if there's one thing I would have liked to see a little bit more is maybe bring that taper closer to 19 millimeter or 18 so that it would more easily go through the buckle and get a little bit less wear on the sides of the strap. Onto the cons about the watch itself. I'm always going to find a couple little things that I think it's important to really try to take an unbiased approach to something, even if you love it. I don't know if there's such a thing as a perfect watch. As I've moved between this watch and other watches over the month, as I've worn it back and forth, as you pull it off the shelf and you want to wind it and set the time, it is a little bit hard to pull the crown. In some circumstances, it might depend on how long your fingernail is, but you can't certainly attack it from the side. Got to kind of attack it from underneath. And even then, if your nail's a little short or something, it can be a little bit difficult to pull that crown out. I'd say the major con to this watch, and I'm not the first one that's maybe said something about it, at least not in Facebook groups and whatnot, is the legibility. You'll note that the hour hand here, it's currently pointing at 8, and then the minute is right about 12 here. They can be hard to read at a glance. One, the dial itself and the hands are small, smaller than a normal watch. And what it's lacking is contrast with the dial itself and the bridge work here. And so the hands can get lost very quickly sometimes. So legibility is not what this watch is geared toward in terms of just reading the time off the dial, but you have the hour chime, right? This is an audible watch. So you're kind of trading off one thing for another in one sense. But I think they could have done something maybe a little bit different. I understand why. You're wanting attention to be on certain elements, and so the on-off, there's our ding. The on-off here has this red indicator. Maybe make these hands that same red. Give some contrast with the silver color and the blue. The hands are loomed and hour markers. And they're really well done, really well finished. But I do think that the legibility is something that will probably drive some people a little bit crazy. But I'm willing to overlook that because of everything else good about this watch. The bracelet, any cons on the bracelet, you can see I'm already beating it up a little bit. I wear my watches, what can I say? There's one con to the bracelets right now, it's that they've made the clasp a little bit longer. It'd be nice to have the clasp a little bit shorter overall. So the older models have a little bit of a shorter clasp. So any other cons beyond that? You may not want to wear anything else because it's that good. There's just nothing else like the Christopher Ward C1 Bel Canto. In the days of non-stop homage watches and dive watches, same old, you're just not seeing too much variation and imagination, whether that's design of dial faces or complications, and it's just a breath of fresh air. There are only a few companies doing breath of fresh air stuff, and Christopher Ward, kudos on just getting outside of the norm and coming up with something just so spectacular. Don't worry, I'll give up close looks at the bridges and gong and hammer and dial, everything. See, there are constant transitions between brushed, blasted, polished, so all kinds of surface work going on. Sunburst platine, beautiful. Screws really well done. The jewels really stand out in their size and placements they've used. Got the squiggle over here for on and off. Bright red indicator. Of course, the beak, right, on this songbird. On the hammer, you can see it's got that blasted interior. And then you've got the brushing on the sides and then the beveled and polished edges. It's got a mirror finish on it. You see there on the left, the screws on the spring, just carbon steel. The polishing on that is wonderful. You can see the loom there on the hands and the raised dial. Blasted bridge work on the interior. Again, these bridges over here, done by Chronode, I believe, in that hand polishing. You see those transitions between the blasted sides and surfaces and then the polished edges. Quite an interesting layout for this complication.
It's new. I've not seen it before, even with other sonorays or repeaters or things I've actually looked at in person. This is new, ingenious almost. It's really great. They're watchmakers at their atelier in Bel. Wow, it's a really wonderful mechanism. The FS01 caliber, based on a Saletta movement, which some people aren't going to like, but you know what? You can cut down some costs by having a really well-known, established movement maker, an established movement, and then you build off of that base, and you can get a lot further a lot quicker, and that's important. If you want to bring this to the masses, the average watch collector, then yeah, there's the logo, crown it too. And I really like the pusher, again, like I mentioned. It's got that brushed surface and then the polished edges. Titanium, it's done really well. Not easy to work with. Grade 5 titanium, super hard. And I mentioned the bracelet, grade 2, but I mean, no complaints. Wonderful. There you have it. In my estimation, the watch of 2022, the Christopher Ward C1 Bel Canto. The combination of price, materials, design kind of resets a bar of what is possible in horology for the general collector. To have a chiming watch with all of these benefits and pros to it is new. And there's a few times in watch manufacturing or in the history of watchmaking where the bar sort of gets reset. And I think this is one as well. And I don't say that lightly. I think this is one of those moments. And I'm really excited to see where the company takes this particular watch, the complications derivative work from it, into the future. So kudos to Christopher Ward for the success on the Bel Canto, and looking forward to seeing more. If you enjoyed the video and got something out of it, consider subscribing. Love to have you stick around to watch complications. More to do. I'm out.